Hello ladies and gentlemen, back when I was in college, I was given the assignment of an oral presentation. The topic I chose was the dangers of compact fluorescent lamps. Since I've been out of college, I've been able to research this topic more and put together this documentary. I'm going to show you a number of slides and some of my source documents so you can verify my claims. The video is going to be rather large, so I'm going to have to break it off into several parts. Let me get started. Spark of Insanity, the dangers of compact fluorescent lamps. Reported benefits of CFLs. CFLs are claimed to provide light that is equivalent in quality and in brightness to incandescent lamps, but use only a fraction of the power. CFLs are supposed to last thousands of hours and thus outlast incandescent bulbs. One of the most important aspects of CFL mandates is that a CFL is supposed to be better for the environment. Unfortunately, all of these claims are false. Mercury is probably one of the most well-known concerns with CFLs. Mercury is a bioaccumulating toxin that damages all tissues and organs. What bioaccumulating is referring to is the fact that mercury will continue to store itself in the body. It doesn't flow freely as other substances would. Mercury can create a perpetual reaction that destroys neurons. Neurons are your brain cells. It will destroy one brain cell and continue to destroy others. Mercury attacks the endocrine and nervous systems. Autism, memory loss, inflammation, depression, thyroid problems, Alzheimer's, adrenal disorders, anxiety, Parkinson's, and multiple sclerosis have all been linked or are known to be aggravated by mercury. Not all mercury in CFLs is the elemental form. Much can be the harmful methyl-mercury vapor that is a potent inhalable neurotoxin. How much mercury? Virtually every CFL design requires mercury. CFLs by design are supposed to have at most 8 milligrams of mercury, usually around 5 milligrams, but that is not always the case. In one study done by the Maine DEP, some CFLs had over 3 times as much, let's say 18 milligrams. Due to mass production, cheap labor in developing nations, and the mad dash to meet subsidized demand, many CFLs have been found to have over 30 milligrams of mercury, which is more than 1,000 watt lamps of other designs. According to Northeast Waste Management Officials Association, 66% of all CFLs sold in 2004 had a mercury content between 0 and 5 milligrams, 30% had between 5 and 10, and 4% had between 10 and 50. How much mercury is dangerous? The amount of mercury conservatively in one CFL, let's say 5 milligrams, can still poison 6,000 gallons of water according to Stanford University and MSNBC. To absorb the mercury in one CFL to a level of safety, or 300 nanograms per cubic meter, you would need over 16,667 cubic meters of soil. That's a figure extrapolated from data from the Maine DEP. It has been accepted that 1 gram of mercury can poison a 20-acre lake. It is known that bioaccumulative toxins are actually more concentrated as you work your way up a food chain. Thus, a fish could have 150,000 times as much mercury as the water it lives in. This is an article discussing the 6,000 gallon figure. This is a PDF file sponsored by the government warning consumers about the dangers of mercury, which contained the 150,000 times concentration figure. Evaporation of mercury in the atmosphere. According to a report compiled by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection, 1/3 of the mercury in a CFL can be released within 8 hours. Hotter air temperatures like those found in the summer months will greatly increase the rate of evaporation. According to the report, 17 to 40% of mercury had made its way into the atmosphere after a 2-week period. In similar research, air that is around a broken CFL can be contaminated for a period of months. On December 2nd, 2010, Germany's Federal Environmental Agency found that mercury levels in the air around a broken CFL was actually 20 times higher than regulations allow, and would stay that way for a period of up to 5 hours after breakage. This is similar information in its original form. Brandy Bridges is probably one of the most important cases of CFL dangers. Brandy Bridges lived in Maine. A CFL broke in a room used by her daughter on March 12, 2007. After hearing concerns of mercury, she had the room professionally cleaned by a hazardous materials team. The cost was $2,004.28, which would be over $2,400 today. The cost of repair was not covered by her homeowner's insurance. The Department of Environmental Protection of Maine checked her home for mercury. What they found was shocking. This is an actual chart from the report. As you can see, mercury was scattered throughout her home. The bag which held cleanup debris was 556, or over the 300 safe level. What's really shocking is the carpet where the ball broke was on a multitude of times beyond the 300 safe level figure. 1,939 is what they quoted. This is a picture of Brandy Bridges, and this is an article discussing her case. The Maine DEP report. Due to no standardized knowledge of cleanup procedures or the dangers of mercury, the DEP of Maine conducted a 206-page report full of damaging evidence. It's still available online and has plenty of vitals and visuals showing a clear mercury threat. This is the actual webpage. You can download the report. It's not just a study from Brandy Bridges' home, it's an actual scientific experiment conducted by the DEP. This is the cover page, and this is a sentence essentially saying that 300 nanograms of mercury were often exceeded. Excursions were over 25,000, over 50,000, and also possibly over 100,000 over the breakage of just a single compact fluorescent lamp. Some findings. results found that a broken CFL could leave a mercury level of over 133,955 nanograms. It was known that even after 7 days and 4 vacuuming sessions with an agitator vacuum, mercury levels would still peak over 800. Maximum levels were over 5,679. This would mean that more mercury potentially was present than initially detected. This is one of their scenarios, one of their experiments. They found that when they broke a bulb on a carpet, vacuumed it with a vacuum, 1 foot above the breakage site, there still was 133,955 nanograms of mercury. At 5 feet, the air's concentration was 23,720 nanograms. It took over 1,500 minutes for their sniffer device to get readings which were below 300. The 1, 8, and 24-hour averages were all above 300. They took that same piece of carpet and vacuumed it 4 times. 7 days later, tested it again. At 1 foot, numbers were 5,679 nanograms. At 5 feet, 1,186. It took over 1,600 minutes to get readings below 300, and they still would spike over 800. As you can see, 1, 8, and 24 hours still show numbers which were above 300 as well. This is the maximum amount of concentration they were able to pull. The last 2 vacuuming sessions are in yellow at the top, and the other sessions still show numbers above 300. They took the vacuum and worried that it was contaminated, so they wiped it down with wet wipes and they removed the bag, but still parts of the vacuum showed concentrations above the 300 safe figure. Another one of their experiments was try to eliminate as much mercury as possible. They broke the bulbs on a wood floor, ventilated the room, cleaned up the glass in larger pieces by hand. Smaller pieces, they used things like index cards, tape, and wet wipes. Try to make sure everything was as clean as possible, but still at 1 foot, they were getting readings as high as 17,569. and readings at 5 feet as high as 765. They redid the experiment, this time had the bulbs on 1 hour prior to breakage. What they found is it still was possible to evaporate more mercury into the atmosphere. They took a Kenmore vacuum, vacuumed up a broken CFL, and tried cleaning it to the best of their ability. Still, parts of the vacuum were contaminated. They show contaminated parts in bold here. This is an actual photograph of how they actually broke the CFLs. As you can see, the gentleman is wearing a hazmat suit, the room is sealed off, and there's plenty of scientific equipment all around him. Just something to think about. Leaky packages. In a recent study, broken bulbs still in the bubble packaging can still leak mercury vapors. You would actually need 3 more layers of bubble packaging to prevent leaks. And a separate Brussels study, they found the only package that kept mercury vapor emissions below permissible exposure levels as defined by state and federal authorities was a double box with zip enclosure, foil plastic laminate bag between the cardboard layers. Now, most people don't have these materials in their home and they're not willing to pay for them just to own a light bulb. You can verify my information by looking at this article. Other toxic substances in CFLs. There's been very little research on other toxic substances that are currently and must be included in CFLs. I haven't seen much studies done into lead, but we do know that there's arsenic in the electronics. Arsenic is a concern because it's an active ingredient in many pesticides. Phenols in the circuit boards, cyanide in metal processing, phosphorus which must be included in CFLs, cadmium. Some interesting things about cadmium. 1, most of it's radioactive. 2, cadmium was actually banned from indicator bulbs. On your automobile, your blinker bulbs can no longer contain cadmium. Hexavalent chromium is another chemical that gets environmentalists very upset, and polybrominated biphenyls, which weren't in CFLs, the CFLs would probably catch fire. Toxic smog. This is some of the most scary information I have. In a recent study out of Germany, it was found that CFLs used today are emitting a smog of toxic substances. The report advises that the bulb should not be left on for extended periods, particularly near someone's head, as they emit poisonous materials when switched on. Peter Braun, who carried out the test at Berlin's A-Lab laboratory, said, "For such carcinogenic substances, it is important that they're kept as far away as possible from the human environment." The German scientists claimed that several carcinogenic chemicals and toxins were released when the environmentally friendly compact fluorescent lamps were switched on, including phenol, naphthalene, and styrene. I also heard reports of toluene. Naphthalene, only if you could save some of that, perhaps you could run a torch. Andreas Kirchner of the Federation of German Engineers said, "Electrical smog develops around these lamps. I, therefore, use them only very economically. They should not be used in unventilated areas and definitely not in the proximity of the head." This is the Telegraph article discussing those findings. And that is the end of the first part of this video. Stay tuned for part 2. Take care. Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is essentially the second part of Spark of Insanity, the dangers of complex fluorescent bulbs. I will start off by talking about the disposal situation of today. Today, it is illegal in many states to dispose of CFLs in the trash. California, Maine, New Hampshire, Minnesota, Vermont, and Massachusetts have all passed laws. To properly clean up a CFL, you are told to vacate the premises, sometimes for up to 20 minutes, with the windows open to spread the toxic mercury to your neighbors. You are supposed to contact a local waste collection agency like the Association of Lighting and Mercury Recyclers, Earth 911, or Lamp Recycle. Many retailers still will not accept broken CFLs, and those who do still might be just stockpiling them. Many organizations will instruct you to mail the CFLs to them, but that is a violation against laws pertaining to mercury waste. It has been confirmed that CFLs at end of life are considered hazardous waste. Only 2% of CFLs are actually recycled today. Most are illegally disposed of. This is the EPA's own website where you can go and research disposal of CFLs. This is a report from 2004 that quoted that 2% figure. This is a report from 2008, and like many reports, continues to quote the 2% figure. Issues with light produced. One of the biggest problems with CFLs is that the light produced by them is far different when compared to an incandescent bulb. CFLs have been known to produce more harmful UV light and frequencies of visible light that have actually been attributed to waking human beings up from sleep, similar to when the sun rises. There's been a series of studies that have actually noted behavioral issues caused or aggravated by the light of CFLs. CFLs have been nicknamed chronic fatigue lamps accordingly. UV light dangers. UV light from CFLs are surprisingly harmful. After sitting next to a CFL for 1 hour at a distance of 20 centimeters, you have met the safe level of UV radiation. Touching a CFL while activated can actually give you the UV equivalent of standing in front of the summer sun all day. Study on CFL light. This is a very important and relatively recent study that I thought I should share. New research funded by the National Science Foundation has scientists warning consumers about the potentially harmful effects energy-saving CFL light bulbs have on the skin. Our study revealed that the response of healthy skin cells to UV emitted from CFL bulbs is consistent with damage from ultraviolet radiation, said lead researcher Miriam Rafalovich, professor of material science and engineering at Stony Brook University in New York. In a statement, skin cell damage was further enhanced when low dosages of titanium dioxide nanoparticles were introduced to the skin cells prior to exposure. Now, titanium dioxide is actually a chemical found in sunblock. According to Rafalovich, with or without titanium dioxide, incandescent bulbs of the same light intensity had zero effects on healthy skin. In this study, we studied the effects of exposure to CFL illumination on healthy skin tissue cells. Cells exposed to CFLs exhibit a decrease in proliferation rate, a significant increase in the production of reactive oxygen species, and a decrease in their ability to contract collagen. This is that report in Photochemistry and Photobiology from 2012. You can look at it for yourself. Examples of medical issues. The dangers of CFL light has been referred to as the Pennsylvania condition due to the fact such lighting has been used in Pennsylvania prisons. Medical conditions include depression, damage to circadian rhythm, headaches, migraines, seizures, epilepsy, sleep disorders, dizziness, tiredness, fatigue, irritation, nervousness, anxiousness, anxiety, skin conditions, sexual dysfunction, obesity, depersonalization disorder, and derealization disorder. People who suffer from ADD, autism, dyslexia, epilepsy, migraines, and skin conditions have claimed or been found to have aggravated symptoms. The light of CFLs has actually been found to hinder the body's ability to carry out the necessary use of minerals. Depersonalization disorder and derealization disorder are something to research. eHow is a website that has a series of articles written by contributors that usually have to source their documents. Thus, I found some interesting articles I thought I should share. First off, the negative effects of fluorescent lighting. Migraine sufferers who are sensitive to flickering light might found that the flicker of fluorescent lights could actually trigger migraines. Reports from the Headache Institute at Roosevelt Hospital in New York suggest complex fluorescent light bulbs in particular may be a trigger for some migraine sufferers, even if they have no problems with regular fluorescent tubes. Seizures. Flickering light has been found to trigger seizures in 3 to 5% of epileptics, according to the Epilepsy Foundation. Eyes. Fluorescent light contains more green, blue, and violet light rather than natural daylight. These light wavelengths are not optimal for reading or visualizing detailed tasks and can cause eye strain. I personally have met people who have complained of such situations. Cancer. The risk of malignant melanoma may be increased to those who are essentially regularly exposed to certain frequencies of fluorescent light, according to a Johns Hopkins University study conducted back in 1993. The United States Food and Drug Administration, now pay attention, reports that roughly 13,000 cases of melanoma each year may be attributed to fluorescent lights. Once again from E. Howe, The Long-Term Effects of Fluorescent Lighting. Education problems. According to studies conducted by the Erland Institute and a 2006 study by Capital E, students in high schools with fluorescent lighting instead of incandescent lighting had lower test scores and learning rates. This is a report from the Erland Institute that I pulled out some interesting pieces from. Sarah is 17 years old and in the 11th grade, but not attending school. She was diagnosed with severe dyslexia and reading problems in the 2nd grade. She gets headaches daily when in school and migraines about twice a month. She was physically exhausted when she would come home and would sleep for hours and was experiencing extreme anxiety. Her psychiatrist determined her problems were triggered by fluorescent lighting and placed her on Prozac, of course, and recommended that she leave school. The negative effects of fluorescent lighting have seriously affected her motivation, attention, and performance. A rather sad story. Let's jump to a story that had a positive ending, and a pretty interesting one. Bryce is 12 years old and in the 6th grade. He was getting poor grades in school and was unable to finish tests. He could not finish his work in class or focus. He was diagnosed with attention deficit disorder and placed on medication, which was not helpful. Once it was determined that fluorescent lighting triggered poor attention and concentration, the problems were resolved using specially filtered lenses. Imagine that. CFLs and babies. Due to the weaker nature of babies, CFLs have a stronger damaging effect on them. Many babies can go blind or have sight damage due to the strong glare of bright light, essentially CFLs, in hospitals. Many babies have sensitive skin that is actually aggravated by CFLs. Negative effects of fluorescent lighting on babies. Once again, it was an E. Howe article. Skin conditions. According to the Skin Care Campaign and the British Association of Dermatologists, fluorescent light bulbs exacerbate skin rashes in people with skin conditions and diseases. For unknown reasons, people with dermatitis, eczema, and lupus suffer more severely from their conditions when exposed to fluorescent light. This fact is especially troubling when regard to newborn babies, since 1 out of 5 already suffer from eczema or a skin-related condition. Eye damage. According to the National Eye Institute, the light in fluorescent bulbs might actually be harmful to the eyes, especially in premature babies. This is an article from 1985 discussing the damage fluorescent lights to premature babies' eyes. The list of some reports. This is a series of very, very important reports I'm going to try to make clear to you because it has some pretty interesting information. As early as 1974, Dr. Richard Wertman of the Massachusetts Institute of Technology began to identify negative health effects associated with fluorescent lighting, including migraines, disrupted sexual development, and obesity, because of the distorted spectrum of fluorescent lights acts to suppress melatonin and disrupt the circadian rhythms of the human body. Fluorescent lighting enhances tumor formation, 1986. Fluorescent lighting contributes to agoraphobia, 1990. Increase in breast cancer rates among night workers exposed to fluorescent lighting, 2006. Circadian disruption caused by fluorescent light in the built environment contributes to breast cancer and endocrine disruption, 2001. Fluorescent lighting caused increased stress in humans, 2001. Damage to circadian rhythm and breast cancer. Simply put, CFLs produce light that is more like frequencies presented when the sun is present. Thus, your body is actively trying to wake up, or at least function as you are trying to fall asleep. This constant battle and these constant frequencies of light reduces the body's ability to use melatonin, thus has been linked to various cancers, including breast cancer. And a study published in the Journal of Chronobiology, the Journal of Chronobiology International, found breast cancer rates were actually up 22% higher to those people exposed to night light. This is the actual report from Israel. And this is the Telegraph article discussing that report. Growing effects. Fluorescent lights cannot be used to grow indoor plants. In the long term, fluorescent wavelengths do not produce enough necessary light in the proper spectrums for plants to effectively use photosynthesis. Something interesting. Now, you also have the electromagnetic force of CFLs. Results from several epidemiological studies show that moderate association exists between the exposure of magnetic fields above 3 to 4 milligauss, I believe that's what that represents, and the occurrence of childhood leukemia. This risk doubled above the 3 to 4 level. Results of EMF radiation was astonishing. This is just one particular light bulb in the 26 watt range. They found that within 6 inches they were getting milligauss readings of over 100. They actually found even at 4 feet or 48 inches, readings were sometimes as high as 3. This is that report which was compiled back in March 2010. Now, UV light and non-living objects. It is not just living objects that can be damaged by UV light, but almost everything we use daily. Many reports, even confessions by lighting companies, have discussed damage to items due to CFLs. This is an E. Howe article again, essentially discussing the damage fluorescent lamps can have on art. UV rays. Fluorescent lamps emit a high concentration of UV rays, which can cause significant damage to various types of artwork. Paintings. Over time, UV rays emitted by fluorescent lighting can actually break down the pigments in oil and acrylic paints, causing the colors to appear washed out. Fabrics are also susceptible to damage from UV rays. After significant exposure, fabric dyes can appear washed out. UV rays can even break down fabric fibers. Foam core boards without adequate protection can actually also sustain damage. This is the inside of a lampshade shared by a lighting company, showing the damage that a CFL has caused. The lack of light quality. One of the most controversial issues surrounding CFLs is the quality of light produced. Even though CFLs produce light that is attributed to be warm white on the Kelvin light temperature scale, essentially 3000 to 3500 Kelvin, it is still slightly higher than the incandescent 2700. But that's not the true source of the difference. One of the major failures is that the CFLs have poor performance in regards to the color rendering index. The CRI is a scale 0 to 100 that's used to measure the accuracy a lamp has to produce the correct balance of colors to match its Kelvin temperature rating, essentially the right tone of white light. Incandescent lamps are almost always 100. CFLs can actually be very low on this scale. This is a chart from a Department of Energy report issued by the United States government concerning the color rendering index of several CFLs. As you can see at the top, the incandescent bulbs were 100, perfect. But as you get down, the solid state lamps, the CFLs, were as low as perhaps 55. This is that caliper report from April 2011. Now, the amount of light produced is something which I will actually start a new video for, so stay tuned for part 3. Welcome to the Spark of Insanity, the Dangers of CFLs. This is part number 3. Alright, today we're going to talk about the amount of light produced. One of the most obvious lies about CFLs is how they're supposed to save you money by producing more light. In study after study, not just done by independent researchers, but even the Department of Energy, they found that with their caliper reports, that these CFLs were producing really low light outputs. CFLs produce less light than incandescents on the initial warm-up period. In fact, alright, you could probably only get about half the rated light, and thus can cause you to actually turn on more lamps and use more electricity. Warm-up should take at least 3 minutes according to the National Center for Policy Analysis. CFLs were never designed to be used in cold outdoor conditions, and thus will never reach their maximum illumination. Cold CFLs are rumored to actually pull in more current than warm CFLs, perhaps actually eating more electricity in the process. This is the NCPA report I got some of that information from. And let's talk about facts on light output. One report found that on average, at the 3/8 of life point, light output was only 50% of the rated levels. One report from the Department of Energy stated that after 40% of rated service life, 1/4 of the lamps they had didn't match the rated lumens at all. Once again, in the Department of Energy caliper testing study, the light outputs of several test lamps had dropped more than 50% within the first 1,000 hours. Even though manufacturers were claiming lifetimes between 6,000 and 10,000 hours. The measured efficiency was smaller than what was declared. It was supposed to be, let's say, between 45 and 65 lumens per watt, but the actual measured values were more like around 30 lumens per watt, or even lower. This is not all the controversy, but as you will see, this is a BBC news article essentially said that energy-efficient light bulbs lose on average 22% of their brightness over their lifetime. In some cases emitting just 60% of the light they were supposed to be. Of 18 energy-saving bulbs tested over 10,000 hours, they found that 3 just stopped altogether. This is a Telegraph report where they took brand new light bulbs in their perfect state of condition and would test how much light they actually offered. They said energy-saving light bulbs offer a dim future. This is that report. As you can see, conventional incandescent bulbs, alright, of 60 watts, we're developing anywhere between 101 and 126 lux. Alright, energy-saving bulbs, which were all supposed to be equivalent to a 60-watt incandescent now, were producing sometimes as low as only 60 lux, and at most only being able to manage 79 lux, even after a 10-minute warm-up period. So, once again, you're not getting the same quality of light as you think you would be. This is that caliper report from April 2011, which I'm going to reference now. They found that 4 out of 33 products ranged from the 60 to 80 lumens per watt figure. 10 had efficiencies between 40 and 59. So essentially, only 14 out of 33 products were actually in the efficiencies that they were supposed to be between, let's say, 45 and 65. All right, 16 of the products were between 20 and 39. 3 were between 1 and 19. All right, and then you also have 2 products that were drawing about 1 watt to produce only about 1 lumen of light output. That's a great deal worse than what most incandescents have. Your 100 watt incandescents are capable of producing about 17.1 lumens per watt. The subject of life. As you've seen, CFLs degrade over the time you use them. The very subject of lifetime is not concrete, as they are notorious for failing early. It was noted how Pacific Gas and Electric was forced to restate the life of CFLs. The lamps were rated for only 9.4 years, when only used, of course, though, for 3 hours a day. Yet field data found that they would last only for about 6.3 years, so they were making a major overstatement. It is important to note that a CFL is a complex piece of electronic equipment. It's not just a simple plug-in. It's not just a filament. And it is reported that for every accurately rated CFL out there, there's about 10 that will fail. Many CFLs, when you buy them out of the box, don't even work at all. Unfortunately, except under a fairly narrow range of circumstances, CFLs are less efficient than advertised. Manufacturers claim that the average lifespan of a CFL bulb is 10,000 hours. However, in many applications, the life and energy savings of a CFL are significantly lower, according to an NCPA report. I'll show you that report later. This is the Wall Street Journal. They had the actual article here discussing how lamps had to be re-rated from 9.4 to 6.3 years. In that article, they mentioned the World Bank has helped dozens of mostly poor nations begin to switch to the bulbs to make electric lighting more affordable. Last June, for example, Bangladesh gave away 5 million bulbs in a single day. I don't know if you have much research on the World Bank, but if you look into it, it's a pretty interesting organization that not always helps developing nations. And if you have a bunch of toxic products, you might as well give them to poorer nations. An educated response. Ron Huai, sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong, a chairman of the Electronic Engineering Department of City University of Hong Kong, shared concerns about CFLs to CNN. Ron Huai was the co-author of a peer-reviewed journal on CFLs. I'll let his words be shared. CNN asked him, "Most have the impression CFLs last a long time, but you are saying this is not the case. The manufacturer will quote 7,000 to 10,000 hours of usage, but the actual operating time is based on the temperature. CFL's component, the electrolytic capacitor, is highly temperature sensitive at the moment, and the best one has a lifespan of 10,000 hours at a temperature of 105 degrees Celsius or 221 degrees Fahrenheit. But in practice, the temperature would be a lot higher and could go above 130 degrees Celsius. Every 10-degree increase in operating temperature means the lifetime drops by 50%. Very often, when CFLs fail, it is the electrolytic capacitor that has failed. The failure rate is high, typically 6 to 9 months, particularly in some regions." This is the internal of a CFL. You'll see here that it's more than just the part that lights up. There's a lot of electronic components. This is a closer look with an earbud for comparison. There could be anywhere between 28 to 40 parts inside that CFL that could fail. Cost of production. The cost and use of resources to manufacture a CFL is by far beyond what it would take to build an incandescent bulb. Dutch researchers at the Technical University of Denmark concluded that a CFL takes 5.7 times as much energy to manufacture as an incandescent. The Watt.com has actually constructed a chart explaining the cost and energy and raw materials. This is that chart. As you can see, a CFL actually will take more energy to produce than an incandescent, and in fact, you can build about 8 incandescents for the same amount of energy. You could build a single CFL bulb. Severe lack of flexibility. CFLs, due to their design, cannot be used in a variety of locations. Applications in which lighting is used only briefly, such as closets, bathrooms, motion detectors, and so forth, will actually cause a CFL to burn out as quickly as a regular incandescent bulb. That's according to the NCPA. CFLs emit infrared light that can interfere with remote-controlled devices such as televisions, video games, and stereo equipment. Once again, NCPA. CFLs can emit an annoying buzz. CFLs emit radio interference that can react with radios, cordless phones, and other devices. In fact, many packages will actually state these warnings. GE suggests that you avoid placing CFLs anywhere near electronics. CFLs can damage the quality of electricity in your power grid. For example, one study related to an isolated island supply system found that CFLs were essentially being used to replace the incandescent lamps because of their energy savings, but they resulted in total harmonic distortion values exceeding 30%. You can actually damage the quality of electricity on your grid. Severe lack of flexibility, 2. CFLs can never be used in fridges, microwaves, or most appliances. In the cold, they will never provide the necessary light, even if continually functioning. A microwave would most likely cause a serious fire. Anywhere a broken bulb can occur, you cannot use a CFL. Imagine the mercury poisoning if you try to use a CFL in such locations. An article from August 27, 2009 actually elaborated that the light bulb ban is actually putting fairground rides at risk. See, in Europe, where they have a ban on incandescent bulbs, they have a lot of problems with traditional fairground rides, especially during turn of the century. That orange glow of the incandescent bulb brings people to the park for the nostalgic feel, and also many of these fixtures need antique bulbs that only are available as incandescent, and the idea of, kids running around and rides moving fast and heavy metal objects breaking bulbs and mercury poisoning is a serious concern. This is that NCPA report, once again, I'm using as a source. And the loss of American jobs. This is a very important piece here. It says here that no CFLs are actually made in the United States. About 95% of them are coming from China. GE actually closed down plants inside the United States that were going to produce high-efficient incandescent lighting, or HEIs. The reasoning was a lack of consumer interest. Take that as you will. The manufacturing resources were instead spent on expansion into foreign countries, particularly for CFL manufacturers. This is an article that discussed the Virginia plant in GE, owned by GE, closing. Now, who killed the HEI? High-efficient incandescent lighting is not a new idea. There's a large history of incandescent technology actually being restricted. Here's some clips from articles that I found on the internet. General Electric Corporation, the world's largest maker of traditional bulbs, said that by 2010, it is hoped that they have on the market a new efficiency incandescent bulb that will be 4 times as efficient as today's 125-year-old technology. It is said that such bulbs will closely rival fluorescent bulbs for efficiency with no mercury. Another article, on May 15, 2007, Michael Scott, a Cleveland Plain Dealer reporter, wrote that General Electric announced by 2010 it will offer incandescent bulbs twice as efficient as those sold today and 4 times as efficient as 2012. A little bit different than the previous report, but still showing a figure potentially as high as 4 times as efficient. Now, lamp re-rating. I'm going to stop this video here because this is a very, very interesting little piece of information not too many people know about. I want to be able to dedicate some time to it. So stay tuned for the next part, which I believe will be part 4. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to part 4 of The Spark of Insanity, The Dangers of Complex Fluorescent Lamps. I left you with a little bit of a cliffhanger here discussing lamp re-rating. This is something very important. Most people don't know that the life of an incandescent bulb can actually last over 1 trillion years. The concept is known as lamp re-rating. Essentially, you drop the voltage of an incandescent bulb below its design, which causes the bulb to actually not just use less watts due to less volts, but actually lowers its amp draw and unfortunately lowers the light output efficiency, or less lumens per watt. It also lowers the color temperature, the Kelvin color temperature. It will be more of like a darker color light rather than the bright whites that we are used to with CFLs. It is common practice to use 130 volt lighting in restaurants so that the light bulbs do not need to be replaced as often. You can just go to any restaurant and look that up for yourself. The only reason why most lighting lasts 1,000 hours is because of an organization that was known as the Phobos Cartel. It was formed by the major lighting companies, and they would actually fine manufacturers for producing lights that were tested to last over 1,000 hours. They would actually engage in legal action to eliminate new manufacturers from the market. Several lamps made previously to the cartel, actually have lasted over 100 years, and several are still functioning today. You can go to centennialbulb.org to see a live video of a bulb functioning in Livermore, California, in all places an actual fire department. This is the lamp re-rating formula. This is it zoomed up so you can do a little bit of experiments for yourself. And this is it from a PDF article if you don't believe Wikipedia. The Phobos Cartel is something interesting to read up on. And this is an actual photograph of the Livermore light bulb that's been functioning now for over 100 years. Conditions in China. The manufacturer quality of China is limited and is pressed in a race to the bottom to limit cost. The laws in China actually do not regulate the products and standards for materials that they're sending out as exports. Regardless of what China has made, the harm to the people in the factories is great. Not just sweatshop labor, but the insane amount of mercury poisoning that has damaged the people on the planet. It says here, most CFLs are manufactured in China. Some factories are high-tech, others are more like sweatshops. Mercury testing has been carried out on 100 employees producing CFLs, and a survey of 18 factories near Shanghai showed that exposure levels to mercury were higher for workers making the new CFLs than other lights containing mercury. According to a report, the Nangfang Daily newspaper, the test of a single factory found 68 out of 72 workers were so badly poisoned they actually required hospitalization. A specialist medical journal published by the Health Ministry describes another complex fluorescent light bulb factory in Jinzhou in central China, where 121 out of 123 employees had excessive mercury levels. One man's level was 150 times the accepted standard. The same journal identified a complex fluorescent light bulb factory in Anyang, eastern China, where 35% of workers suffered mercury poisoning, and the industrial discharge containing the toxin actually went right into their water supply. 8,000 miles of smog. With almost all lamps sourced from China, they have to travel about 8,000 miles to get to the U.S. and thus need to utilize large cargo ships. Just 16 now of these cargo ships produce the same amount of pollution as all the cars on the earth. CFLs not only pollute before you place them in your home, but they actually don't help you save money in your electric bill, as 90% of your electricity is actually due to appliances, not due to lighting. This is one of the various articles that quoted that 16-ship figure. These articles were no way related to CFLs. They were just an interesting piece of information people thought was necessary to share. More bang for the buck. Some people have actually purchased a dozen of 2,000-hour 100-watt incandescent bulbs at a price of only about $1.20 or 10 cents a piece. Essentially 24,000 hours of light. Well, many CFLs still cost over $3 for a single bulb and can't even, produce 5,000 hours of light. And not to mention, most of those bulbs you're buying are actually paid for with your taxpayer dollars via subsidies. Now, if one wants to make a lamp last even longer, like an incandescent bulb, all you need to do is use some reusable items like a diode or a thermal resistor at the base of the incandescent bulb. Those will actually help increase the life. Common sense, people. Look at this photograph. I have an incandescent bulb placed as it would be in a normal socket. Now, all forms of light do produce some sort of heat. It's a byproduct. Now, the heat tends to rise. That's what heat does. It's less dense. As it rises directly into the electronic components of a CFL. The silent killer. CFLs are held responsible for damage and loss of homes, even human death due to fire and explosion hazards. CFLs are tested, and many are designed with the lighting element facing uncovered and pointing upward, like in a lab environment. Yet most applications of the lamps actually have the element facing downward, where heat collects after rising into the electronic components. With the information shared on how production is flimsy, and many CFLs and also personal statements shared by Mr. Huai, no wonder there has been so many issues. The next couple slides will document tragedies. December 23, 2010, a complex fluorescent light on the ceiling burst and started a fire in a home in Harnell, New York, December 23, 2010. Those are the lights everyone's been telling us to use, said Joe Agurich of Steuben County. He was the fire inspector. It blew up like a bomb. It splattered all over. Fire Chief Mike Robbins said the blaze destroyed the room where the fire started and everything in it. The rest of the house suffered smoke and water damage. The Arkport Village Fire Department, as well as the North Hornell Fire Department, required 15 minutes to put out the fire. This is an actual photograph of some of the damage, and this is an article you can look up for yourself. May 21st, 2010. The bulb explodes without warning, reported NBC Action News. May 21st, 2010. Tom and Nancy Heim were watching TV recently when Tom decided to turn on the floor lamp sitting next to his recliner. I heard this loud pop. I saw what I thought was smoke coming out from the top of the floor lamp, says Tom. Nancy suddenly found glass in her lamp. She says, I did not see it, I just heard it, and I noticed I had glass on me. This is that article you can research for yourself. As you can see, it says CFL light bulb risks. February 12th, 2011. On February 23rd, 2011, TV Action News Channel 5 in Tennessee covered a newly released investigators report that blames a February 12th fatal fire in Gallatin on one of those CFL bulbs. Ben Rose, an attorney for the rehabilitative facility in which Douglas Johnson, 45, perished, said, "This result is consistent with our own private investigation. We have heard reports of similar fires being initiated by CFLs across this country." This is an article that discussed that event. February 15th, 2010. On February 15th, 2010, a TV station reported a fire in Hinsdale, Illinois from a CFL plug to a dimmer. Channel 2 CBS reporter Ann State said that the producer of the news program tried to find a CFL that could be used with dimmers, but discovered that they were very hard to find and cost more. April 30th, 2008. On April 30th, 2008, the Cumberland Times News reported that Rick Jenkins' family had lost everything in a fire caused by a CFL connected to a dimmer switch. Many types of CFLs include package warnings that basically say you're not supposed to connect them to dimmer switches. I don't read light bulbs, said Jenkins. I didn't think I'd ever have to. It just goes to show you that, you got to be careful and read everything that you buy. This is a report that simply just said, Blaze underscores the need for CFL bulb education. Various reports. There's so many reports about problems with CFLs. This one says that only after 6 months of use, the bulb started making funny noises and flickering, finally exploded on my kitchen table. It says here a bulb in a half bedroom caught fire. The bulb snapped and glowed very brightly, then caught on fire. The bulb was supposed to last 5 years, but it only lasted about a year or so. I tried replacing it with a GE 26-watt bulb, and the same thing happened immediately. My 80-year-old mother turned on her reading lamp, and the bulb exploded, and the lamp shade caught fire. She unplugged the lamp from the wall, and the fire went out, thank God. I turned on an overhead bathroom light bulb, heard a pop. It exploded, falling into the bathroom sink. Nearly all the flying glass went straight down, so little damage was done. However, I was very thankful it didn't get in my eyes. More reports. We purchased a special 3-way light bulb this past year. Special 3-way CFLs cost more. Last night, the bulb started fire in the lamp. If we had not been there, our house might have been burned down. I had a desk lamp CFL burned right up in front of me. I switched on and tiny sparks were emanating like a Van de Graaff generator. Quickly, I switched it off. Plastic around the ballast was cracked and smoking. Photographic evidence. Below, which this was actually a capture from an article I copied and pasted in here, but it said below is a picture of the CFL light bulb from my bathroom. I turned it on the other day and then smelled smoke after a few minutes. 4-inch flames were spewing out from the side of the ballast like a blowtorch. I immediately turned off the lights, but I'm sure it would have caused a fire if I had not been right there. I imagine if the kids had left the lights on unusual when they were not in the room. I took the bulb to the fire department to report the incident. The fireman wasn't at all surprised and said that this was an uncommon occurrence. Apparently, sometimes when the bulb burns out, there's a chance that the ballast can start a fire. He told me that the fire marshal had issued reports about the dangers of these bulbs. This is a photograph of that bulb the gentleman had. Recalls. Due to the massive amount of CFL failures and potential for casualties, various CFLs have been recalled. All right. Some recalls have been recent, but not all are actually done by no-name brands. Some of these are actually pretty reputable companies. This is just one which actually had here, once again, a fluorescent light bulb recalled due to fire hazard. Now, stupid subsidies. Essentially, there are many states out there that subsidize CFL purchases with your tax dollars. Now, you pay. Essentially, what they do is they pay part of the price when you go to a retailer, so you see a lower price on the shelf. Essentially, as you've seen, government is subsidized the pollution of the planet and the death of its people through these CFLs. It's almost like if they were the anti-human race. This is the Connecticut Energy Efficiency Board, which actually subsidizes CFL sales in the state of Connecticut. Problems with subsidies. In the development of the automobile, there was a long-standing belief in data that was actually backing up that the most efficient and reliable powered cars were those that were propelled by propellers. As time went on, the problems and fallacies with such designs became known. But here's the thing. When government subsidizes the technology by bankrolling it, what actually happens is that the government chooses the winner in it doesn't just actually choose the winner in technology, but actually chooses all the losers. All the potentially amazing technologies that could have been developed do not go on further because they do not have unlimited funds to compete with the subsidized businesses. Currently, one could find plenty of better lighting and technology, such as non-toxic versions of LEDs, and even the historical, reliable incandescent. This is just a photograph of a car from the 1930s that used a propeller for transportation. It had a much more simplistic drivetrain, and according to reports, due to the simplicity and lightweight of the vehicle, how lightweight the vehicle was, it should actually be getting better mileage. What to do? Stop buying CFLs. Treat them as hazardous waste that they actually are. Call your representatives and senators and tell them that you are an American and should have the right to buy any light that you want to. Tell them that they should end the use of your tax dollars on these on subsidies for these toxic products. Contact your state agencies and tell them that the subsidies need to end. Tell the American corporations that you want the United States to start building non-toxic lighting just like we had a few years ago. That essentially is the end of this presentation. I hope that you can look up some of the information on your own and make your own good decisions. I honestly am not a fan of the complex fluorescent lamp. I do not use CFLs. I try to avoid them as much as possible. The incandescent is actually a pretty interesting piece of technology. Anything that uses a filament is a pretty reliable, simplistic piece of technology. And I'm also a fan of LEDs, light-emitting diodes. I like those technologies I'm not a fan of the CFL. Take care for now, folks.